in my research into gun laws in Ohio specifically, it seems like, what I found is that, you can, when you're buying a gun, you need a background check if you're buying through a licensed dealer, but not at, say, a gun show or through a private dealer. And then you need a license to conceal a handgun. But other than that, there, aren't a lot of legal requirements for gun ownership. I guess start off by asking, is that accurate as far as you know? And I guess, how do you feel about that state of
well, well, my position on gun control is that the Constitution is very clear, John, that the rights of the American people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. We don't have a gun problem per se. We've got a people problem, a criminal problem, a terrorist problem, and in the context of guns being used to inflict personal harm on oneself, we have a mental health problem. My wife is very, very involved, and she and I both are very involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And I can tell you, a person that is determined to do themselves harm or to do someone else harm, if they can't find access to a gun, they're going to find other means by which to do that. So, I don't think restricting the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens is going to stop people that are determined to do criminal, terrorist, or personally self-inflicted harm to themselves. That's not going to stop that.
Gotcha. Okay, so I guess would you say overall you're satisfied with the gun laws that we have in place? They just maybe need to be better enforced, or other measures need to be put in place?
Well, we've got, we've got. First of all, I'm a federal rep. I'm not a state rep, and I'm not a law enforcement official, so I don't deal with those things on the tactical level. But what I do believe is that the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens are constitutionally guaranteed, and that's what we have to. That's what we stand on. That's what I stand on. I leave it up to the law enforcement officials to enforce the gun laws that are already on the books, and in some cases those gun laws are not working. I mean, you take Chicago, for example. One of the places in our country that have the most stringent gun laws in the country, yet it has one of the biggest crime and murder rates in the country with firearms. So I think it's it's proven in the statistics that more gun control is not the answer. We have a societal issue, we have a cultural issue. And we have a lack of recognition that people that are going to walk into a restaurant or a department store or a parking lot or a school and indiscriminately begin to shoot people down, there is a mental problem there that we need to get our hands on. I sit on the Energy and Commerce Committee in the House of Representatives. And one of our biggest focuses is on mental health legislation to bring to light the implications of mental illness as it relates to violent crime, and also what do we do about it? How do we provision teachers and school officials and physicians to be able to more accurately identify when those warning signs go off so that we can prevent some of the kinds of things that we've seen happen.
Okay, yeah, so in your mind, I guess, is that better education? Is that part of the answer to how we solve this? Is it the whole? What do you think should be done, or how do we fight this?
Education. Well, I just kind of gave you a remedy for what needs to be done. We need, we need mental health legislation at the federal level that starts the national conversation and provides the the tools and creates the dialogue, the education. Education is certainly a part of it, but we need to focus on stopping these things in their tracks long before a person gets their hands onto a firearm or a knife or some other kind of harmful weapon that would do other people harm. Absolutely, education is a big part of it.
Gotcha. What were your thoughts on the executive order that Obama signed on gun control earlier this year?
Not for it. Absolutely not for it. The Constitution is clear, and I think I've made that case in many of the comments that I've given to you today. The answer is not more gun control. The answer is addressing the mental health issues. I mean, because I think one thing that we can all agree on, a human being that can walk into a place and just indiscriminately mow other people down with a firearm, there's something mentally unstable about that person. How do we identify that up front before the incident even gets to that level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then as far as people who, would hurt themselves with firearms, I know there's a theory out there that, for example, one study that I looked at that was published in a psychology journal found that the vast majority of people who attempt suicide and survive die by some other means, which would suggest at least that some people who harm themselves are not set on doing so. I mean, do you think fewer guns being available just generally would prevent some of those, maybe rash decisions for people to hurt themselves, or do you think that's not an answer to that question at all?
No, a person that's determined to hurt themselves, John, they're going to find some means to do it. I know of situations, you probably know of situations of people that have tried to harm themselves with a firearm, and they survived. Is it all cases? No. But a person that is determined to hurt themselves, they're going to do it once it goes beyond a certain point. I was a commander in the military in the United States Air Force, and we did a lot of suicide prevention discussions with our troops, particularly around the holidays when families are separated and loved ones are deployed in overseas locations and things like that. And it's not always firearm related. I know that for a fact because I dealt with it every day. Again, restricting the availability, the access, and the right to keep and bear arms by law-abiding citizens, that's not a solution to the problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in your experience, would you say that most people who commit suicide are determined to do so?
Well, wouldn't you think so? I mean, it's not a laughing matter, certainly not. But a person that begins the process of hurting themselves, they're absolutely determined to do so. The question is, how did they get in that condition? How did they get in that state of mind? And what could have been done by a family member that was more educated, a school official that was more educated, a coworker that was more educated to see the warning signs? That's what will prevent those things from happening. Mm-hmm. One of the things that my wife and I have been involved in the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is called Out of the Darkness Walks. We need to be having the dialogue about suicide prevention in schools, in elementary schools, in high schools, in colleges, and everybody needs to be made aware of what the warning signs are: depression, despondency, threats to hurt oneself. Those kinds of things need to be out there in the public eye, and survivors. And when I say survivors, I'm talking about family members who have lost loved ones to suicide. They will validate this. They wish that someone had told them what the warning signs were before their loved one went that far. So I think when a person gets to the point where they've made the final decision to harm themselves, whether it's with a firearm, with a rope, with the exhaust of an automobile, whatever that happens to be, they are desperate at that point, and the point that could turn it around is recognizing it sometime prior to that.